Welcome to this explainer. We aren't hanging about today. We're looking straight at the hard reality of the Irish commute.
Right, let's dive straight in. Look at that number, 0. For a huge swath of the country doing the daily school run or the slog of a work commute, there are effectively 0 practical alternatives to the car. It's a stark figure, isn't it? When you look at the transport data across the length and breadth of Ireland, it paints a picture of a population that is almost entirely tethered to their vehicles. And look, to be fair to people, it's not because everyone just loves sitting in traffic. For a massive portion of the population, particularly working families trying to get the kids out the door and make it to the office or the building site on time, the car isn't some luxury add-on. It is an absolute non-negotiable lifeline.
Which brings us to the core question of our explainer today. This really taps into the sheer frustration of working families who are giving out about the traffic every single morning. Sure, we've all been there, haven't we? Sitting stationary on the M50 or stuck behind a slow-moving tractor on a regional road, just watching the clock tick by while the stress levels absolutely go through the roof. We hear the environmental arguments constantly, and we know on a macro level we really should be moving away from private cars. But it begs the real, on-the-ground question, why isn't public transport a genuine alternative? The data we are looking at today explains exactly why. For the average Irish working family, abandoning the car simply isn't an option they can entertain right now.
Section 1. Cost versus convenience, the daily battle.
Now here is the grueling choice. On paper, public transport makes total economic sense. You top up your Leap card, pay your fare, and compared to filling up with petrol or diesel, you're keeping a few extra euro in your pocket at the end of the week. But in Ireland, convenience is absolutely king when you have a family to run. Your daily schedule is a finely tuned machine, isn't it? Morning drop-offs, a mad dash to the local GAA club in the evening, grabbing the weekly shop in Aldi or Tesco, all while trying to hold down your own job. Public transport simply does not have the agility to match that. The bus timetable doesn't care if hurling practice runs late or if it's lashing rain out.
Moving on to Section 2, the rural coverage gap and forced car reliance.
It might be grand if you live right on the Dart line in Dublin. I mean, you pay a fierce premium in housing to live there, but the transport is actually there. But once you step outside the major commuter belts of Dublin, Cork, Galway, or Limerick, the network thins out dramatically. If the local link bus only passes the crossroads twice a day, well, you just can't build your family's livelihood around it. It's what the data calls forced car reliance. Without a car down the country, you are practically cut off from fully participating in the economy.
Section 3. Time versus money and the commuter trade-offs.
You can see the stark trade-off here. Avoiding the financial cost of running a car often extracts a massive time tax from parents. Now, the financial drain of driving is obvious. Keeping a car on the road in Ireland is a fierce undertaking altogether. You've got motor tax, the NCT, insurance premiums, and the ever-fluctuating price at the pumps. And yes, public transit might eliminate those heavy vehicle costs, but the alternative levies a severe time tax on the commuter. A journey that takes 40 minutes door to door in the car could easily take an hour and a half, involving 2 separate buses, a wait in the freezing cold, and a brisk walk at the end. For a parent trying to get home to their kids, that lost time is invaluable. That is an hour and a half robbed from your evening. Commuters are essentially forced to buy back their own time by keeping that car on the road.
And Section 4. Investment versus outcomes, the frustrating gap.
There's this incredibly frustrating disconnect between the investment poured into the system and what actually happens on the ground. Make no mistake, hundreds of millions are being allocated to transport infrastructure. We hear the grand announcements on the news all the time. But the actual lived outcomes just don't match up for the working family. The money on paper isn't stopping those ghost buses that magically vanish off the real-time app just when you need them most. It isn't suddenly creating new routes in underserved rural parishes overnight. The input is high, yeah, but the output still leaves the commuter standing out in the cold.
So, to pull all this together, these are the structural roadblocks forcing Irish families to remain firmly behind the wheel. It's the daily, grinding fight between cost and convenience, where convenience almost always has to win out for a busy household. It's the glaring coverage gaps that essentially isolate anyone living outside a major urban center. It's that punishing time tax that forces people to choose between their bank balance and actually seeing their kids before bedtime. And finally, it's that massive gap between the grand state investments we hear about and the everyday outcomes we experience on the ground. These 4 pillars represent exactly why the car remains the undisputed king of the road in Ireland.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. Until the outcomes actually match the investment, can we really expect the working family to just leave the car in the driveway? It's a massive challenge staring down the country.
We can throw all the money in the world at the problem, but until taking the bus or the train is as reliable and as fiercely convenient as turning the key in the ignition of your own car, the data tells us the Irish commuter's dilemma isn't going anywhere. Thanks a million for joining me to unpack the reality of this explainer today. Keep an eye on those bus timetables, stay safe on the roads, and I will catch you all next time.